What is going on, guys? And today, guys, we are going to review the Uncharted 3, and this is going to be the final video for this, and then we'll get back on Let's Plays or something else that I feel like doing. I most likely Let's Plays, but, yeah, can't guarantee you'll see it tomorrow, but we'll be back on the track for them. Um, so, now we're going to go ahead and talk about Uncharted 3. And you're going to start out this game by playing as Nathan as a kid. You'll see him trying to steal the ring that he believes is his because he believes he's the ancestor to Sir Nathan Drake. Sir Francis Drake. I should say. Sorry about that. But, so then he proceeds to try to steal his ring, but then you see that he is Sullivan. Sully is trying to also do the same. So he walks away from the case and sees that Sully's trying to do it, and then he gets kicked out of the museum, but is following Sully to try to steal the key that Sullivan is using to steal the ring. The ring that he always wears around his neck. Um, um, in the game, so you obviously know that he gets it. But he basically tails Sully throughout it all. Throughout the entire city that they're in. I can't honestly fucking remember. Um um and so he steals the key from Sullivan because he is on a date with the owner of said museum. There is something that happens, and I'll talk about it, but I feel like this is more important to talk about because this was the main, really beginning of the game. But so he um sees that Nathan uh is stealing, and eventually he notices that his wallet is missing, and so basically Nathan knows that the key to get into the ring that he believes is from Sir Francis Drake is inside that case, and you see him then steal it. But this time he gets caught by the owner of museum and Sully, which we later find out that her name is Catherine. Catherine and these two motherfuckers I will mention. This game doesn't. Oh, it even improves. The game somehow even fucking improves on betterness. But so um basically then he tries to escape the museum and does so successfully, but not without the help of Sully. And then you see Sully save him from nearly getting shot, and then so they're sitting down at dinner. Sully bought him dinner, and he says that hey, you know, why is this ring so important to you? He says, because I'm the ancestor to Sir Francis Drake. And he goes, hate to break it to you, kid, but Sir Francis Drake didn't have any children. And then Nathan just says, not that he knows of. Um, but he then later and then they kind of just start to bond. He tells him his name, and then they just start. Basically, they just start to chit chat, and eventually it grows into a relationship. At the end, with Nathan telling him why he thinks this and that, and then he says, Sully says, "Okay, I'm gonna train you. You're sloppy, but I can train you." So, like I said, he trains him. Now we go back to the really beginning of the game, but like I said, that took up basically the entirety of the. This was the tutorial basically, and this was basically the new mechanic for the game. They improved the hand-to-hand combat, and this is what I loved about Uncharted 3. They took something as basic as hand-to-hand combat, made it a main feature of the game, and made it so fucking fun. And like, holy shit. And now, basically, they're entering a pub and someone wants to buy that ring that Drake has always wore around his neck for the every game. And so, um, now I will say, unlike in previous Uncharted games where I said that you didn't like in Uncharted 2, I didn't feel it was absolutely necessary for you to play one. In this game, you need to play 2 and 1 to really understand what all this means. Is that you do need to play both games. Although Uncharted 1, I still feel like you could play if you play 2, you will know enough of 3 to play the game to understand it and all. But basically, Drake says, "You ain't buying my ring because these bills are fake." Um, and this motherfucker's name is Talbot. And Talbot is a son of a bitch. Son of a bitch that I couldn't wait to kill in this game. And again, like I said, they'll always improve. They took something as basic as hand-to-hand combat, made it a main mechanic in the game, and made it so freaking fun. Combat, still smooth as ever. Puzzles, complicated as hell, but fair. Platforming, fantastic. And then, so they basically have a bar brawl, and then, so basically, then it seems like they're not able to escape. They have this ring, and then one of Catherine, Talbot looks for Catherine. They're going to try and get something. We don't know what yet. And then Cutter, I'm just telling you his name now, but shoots Nathan and Sully, and then that flashback starts that I've already explained. Basically how Sully and Nathan met, and then it turns out that Nate and them gave them a fake ring, and that Cutter was always on their side, and that then Mrs. Chloe makes her return for the game, and it's kind of like, hey, we're going to go follow them. And they're like, yeah, we're going to go follow them. All right. So basically, they do that. They go and try to get the other piece. Because up until now, they were always at a standstill because Nathan had the ring. Catherine had the dial that you needed to find where the next part would go. And then he was also trying to steal that in the flashback. But mainly, I think he wanted the ring. But anyway. So now, they say, all right, Sully, and Nate, we gotta go to France. And, you, Cutter and, fucking, what's his goddamn name? What's her goddamn name? Chloe go to Syrian. And then, Tailbot actually trails Sully and Nathan, and so they just right where they're about to get the treasure and find out where this next clue would be. Tailbot, motherfucker, traps them in, and these fucking deathly spiders come out. And so they have to escape that. But then Tailbot starts burning the chateau. This fucking place, the tomb was there. So you're like, oh, fuck. And so this is just one of those sequences that it's heart-wrenching and goes a million... You have to just go so fast, but it's so fun and so fair at the same time. It's such a great part in the game. And then, so they're like, hey, guys, so they escape, with the part of the amulet not with them, unfortunately. Tailbot has that. And then they're like, oh, if we got followed, they probably got followed. Let's go help Chloe and Cutter. So they do that again. So they think they're kidnapped. They're fine. But they need to get to the Rubkali Desert to find something. They don't know what, but anyway. So while they are just trying to solve puzzles and shit, after the Cutter is hit with a hallucination dart, basically thinking he and Talbot trailed him. Now this part I don't really understand. He tells him not to trust Nathan, so then they kind of just start fighting. And so Cutter nearly kills him, but then because they went, Chloe and Sully went down a very tight core hole, basically a loading screen almost, but basically those things are used for loading screens, in a nice way, but so they go through, and he's like, I'll make sure Cutter gets through. And then he's like, I'm fucking... And Cutter just goes apeshit, start choking him. And you basically just have a fist fight. And like I said, just adding on a fucking great feature. Fucking great feature in this game. I'm sorry when that happens, but fuck. So, it's a great feature in this game, and I can't stress how good that is. They go through this thing now. Now that he's not hallucinated by the dirt, he gets the other half of the amulet, whatever the hell you want to call it. So then he we thought this was going to be the end because we thought the sleeping dart was going to activate again on Cutter because he pointed the gun at Nate, Sully, and Chloe, and then was like, Talbot was like, hey, you need to shoot him, and I was like, you need to shoot, and then they were like, Cutter, you gonna shoot? Talbot said that, and then basically he's like, yeah, I am, and then shoots him. And then we thought Cutter was going to die, but instead he just gets shot, and then they have to carry Cutter out of there. Because he just jumps off this thing. And then Cutter basically is unable to do anything, and Chloe's like, I'm done with this. And then Sully's like... And he's like, so we need to go to Yemen. And he's like... Alright, kid, I'm always with you. But he's like, I need you, we're gonna have to get someone. He's like, no, not, I know who you're thinking of, and anything but that. And it turns out to be Elena, who can help them in Yemen get to what they need, because basically the other half of the amulet is stolen again, so they don't have the amulet. But he basically knows because he traced it down in his diary. And basically, yeah, they go find another piece of treasure anyway. And then he gets hit with a fucking dart again, and he goes fucking ape shit. Just ape shit. Um. So then, um, yeah, and then Talbot and Catherine have him hostage. Not really, because you can't use guns in the city. Um, so they just say, would Sully be here to save you? Because Nathan Drake got hit with like one of those darts and just went ape shit. So, and was like, no one needs to touch me. 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 So, he's like, if Sully was such a good, Catherine was like, if Sully was such a good friend to you, why wouldn't he be here saving you right now? Um, you would do the same for Sully, I know, but what would you do? And then she's like, I know more about you than what I think. And we get more about, the back story, to Nate. Uh, basically, where that his mother committed suicide, and then his father just basically gave him up for adoption, and then was later dead. And Nathan Drake is not really his real name. He just started going by Drake when he was put. He was abandoned by the father. I don't know if he really died, but you can only assume after some point. But he didn't take the name Drake until he was into the Sir Francis orphanage. Um, and then basically because they had this like star, and then Sully knows the location. Nate really doesn't know the location because he was like, Sully, remember this. Talbot says we found Sully's location. Um, and so they basically he says fuck it and starts chasing Talbot because there are no guns in the city. So he chases him down, and then they just get into another fist fight. Like I said, influencing another fucking great mechanic. Um, and then just gets knocked out by somebody. And then this part really wasn't that important, but just a really fun gunplay section is that he's on a boat, and then you have to fight your way out and then get back to shore. And then the boat nearly is basically like the Titanic almost. It's tipping over, and then he gets washed up back in Yemen, and is reunited with Elena, who then says, the people took Sully, and that you gotta go get the. So you stealth through a section and try to get Sully, get onto the boat. The ship eventually crashes due to Drake again, um, and then goes through this on the. Now he's stranded in the fucking desert. The plane crashed. So he goes onto the cargo pallet. Um, and then the cargo pallet's basically what caused the thing. And now he's stranded in the desert with no water, so he's kind of fucked. And then you just kind of see him go insane until he finds a town. Um, until he runs on upon someone. He wanders when he finds the town. He finds a town that it's basically just a gang war almost between Catherine's people and a guy's named Salim's people. And then after Nate helps Salim, he says, "Okay, I'm gonna take you to the convoy." And then helps and gets Sully, and then Salim's like, "You can't let them do this because it's bad." Um, because they want to. There was this brass flask, almost not a flask, but jar that includes every evil de jinn or Ajin, whatever the fuck you want to call it. I don't even know. Jin, I don't. Whatever the fuck you want to call it. Ajin, Jin, the Jin. I don't give a shit. Whatever the hell you will. Whatever the hell tickles your fancy. Um. Mm. And so they're like, "Yeah, we're gonna go stop her." After you basically stop her, But here's where it gets great. Once you arrive in the city, when he enters Aber, Nate and Sully come across a water fountain. And so, Nate, he hasn't drank anything, so he's fucking thirsty, thirsty, thirsty. So, well, this is fucking just such great storytelling. Fucking so great storytelling, people. Um, you later see that Sully gets shot by Talbot and Catherine. Um, but it's really that. And then you see people like becoming almost a fucking human torch. And I'm just gonna say, I loved about this game, you could still punch people that were on fire. But it turns out that it was all in Nathan's head. He was a hallucination because of that water. And Sully comes out and he's like, "You just ran off when you started drinking that fucking water. You went apeshit again." And so Sully was okay, but it was funny as hell. He's like, "How do I know you're real?" Because he was being hallucinating. Like he was in a pool. He like released a pool and then was like, okay. And then he got pulled in through like dimensions and such. He's like, and Sully he has a gun pointed at Sully and like, Sully he's like, "Calm down, kid." Grabs the gun for him and then flicks him in the head and goes, "Is that proof enough for you? Don't ever point a gun at me again," and puts the gun back in his holster. And then they just try to chase her down. They're like, "Let's flank her," and then Sully gets pushed into the water. Um, and so Nathan goes to save him, and they found a gun earlier that I guess can shoot through water and blows up and just sends the vessel to the bottom of the ocean. Um, um, fucking what else? So yeah, basically the vessel just drops and sinks to the ocean where it was buried. Um, and then the city starts to collapse again. Or sinks into the sand. Really, is what I should say. And it's just basically collapsing. You try to escape basically, and then um so basically uh, they escape, and then they'll find the two back in just like a corridor, and then that breaks, and then Catherine goes into some sinking sand. Um, and then you get into another fist fight with the fucking Talbot. Um, and then you look like you're about to fall off, and then Sully tries to take him for a little bit. You get up, you shoot him, he falls off. Everything's good to go. Um, and yeah, but I did want to say is that towards the end, and basically this is where it is. So everyone's dead and you escape. Everything's good. Um, but he says something that's awesome, just awesome. Towards the end, Sullivan says this to Nate. He says, "Hey Drake, we just gotta talk for a second, basically." And he goes, "Here's the thing, kid. We don't get to choose how we start in this life. Real greatness is what you do with the hand you're dealt with." In case you guys didn't know, greatness was a big thing because that ring says greatness starts from small beginnings, or greatness comes from small beginnings. Um, so, just awesome, badass quote. So yeah, guys. But and Sullivan also gives them back the wedding ring, saying, you know, and then just says that quote. Here's the thing, kid. We don't get to choose how we start in this life. Real greatness is what you do with the hand you're dealt with. Um, so yeah, and then they basically get back together. Elena comes up and and he's like, Drake says, "Where are you going?" And he's like, "I'm sorry for being a dick." I really didn't even get to this. I was gonna save it for this in my head, but basically they did get married. But you could see they kind of hit a rough patch because Drake may be going to do this. Um, so you really didn't know. And throughout the game, you kind of see the relationship get better and better, and Elena somewhat accepting it but didn't want it. Um, and also at the beginning, which was also just another great way to tell story, is that she says, "Don't do anything that would get Sully hurt. He would do anything for you." Again, just such a freaking great game. Like I said with Uncharted 2, I'm not even gonna give you the little fancy thing that I planned on doing because this game's fucking great. Go buy it. It is a masterpiece. It is a without a doubt solid 10 out of 10. And I said this well. Uncharted 2 and 3 are some of the greatest games of all time and are in my probably top 5 games of all time. Such great games. We'll see where Uncharted 4 takes us, but you won't hear that here. You're going to just see that probably more detailed in the top 15 best games of 2016. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Hit all that YouTube stuff. Hit the bell. Hit the fucking like. Hit the share. Hit the fucking everything. Subscribe. And most importantly, guys, do subscribe if you did enjoy this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.